everyone, and welcome to the Jam Yearbook. I'm Jim.
And I'm Matt. On this episode, we're bringing you music and comedy. Some of the greatest enjoyment Jim and I have had from music has been what's made us laugh.
That's right. And we're going to sing the entire episode to you. We all know how Matt loves musicals.
Oh, fuck
So
you.
we thought we sing about all of the songs that have made us laugh. Are you ready? Here we go.
Yeah,
Matt, you start us off with your glorious dulcet tones.
that is not what I was signing up for today, Jim. That sounds more painful than funny to everybody involved.
Well, it's close enough to April Fool's, so we'll just pull that card out. But we should probably warn people that we probably will have to sing a few bits here and there and pause for some obnoxious laughter.
The joke's actually on the listeners because we're probably not going to be that funny. I'm sure we rarely are doing this more than a show for two at times. I guarantee though, Jim, we are going to have fun.
Yeah, we are. And I'm probably going to have to stop Matt a dozen or so times from quoting stand up when we're supposed to only be focusing on the music.
You know me too well.
Yeah. And we should probably warn people that if you're sensitive to foul language, all of our friends, cousins, brothers, coworkers, if you decide to stick it out with us from here, brace yourself because you're possibly going to hear Matt and I throw around some language that you've never heard coming out of our pretty little mouths.
Ooh, pretty little mouse. That's a little creepy, Jim. Squeal like a pig, boy.
Well, that was my compliment to you, Matt.
Oh, okay. I totally misread the room there.
We've almost reached 2 years of watching each other here on Zoom, recording this show. Here we are.
Wow, 2 years. Thanks for putting up with us, everyone. And Jim, you're right. You will probably have to cut me off a couple times. I will try to keep myself in check because I listen to comedy almost as much as I listen to music. I quote some kind of comedy routine almost every day because I usually find some kind of situation going on that a joke will just pop into my head and it fits. We can try and get the boring stuff out of the way early here with a brief history of comedy and music because I always like to do that, apparently. It would be a pointless exercise to try to find a place in history where comedy and music first intersected. Music is an expression of emotion, and laughter is one of the chief needs of human beings. There have been comic operas, satire sung at medieval carnivals, ribald folk songs, naughty crooners, country puns, rock and roll novelty songs, and funny hip hop. But Mozart, he composed a canon called Leck mich im Arsch, and I probably completely botched that translation, but it loosely translates to lick my ass in the 18th century. Dr. Demento, who's been introducing the world of funny music on his radio show since 1970, said the first funny song was probably that time when Og the Caveman started singing about how funny Noog the Caveman looked when he wrapped himself in an animal skin for the first time instead of going around naked like all the other cavemen did. He is still active, believe it or not. But he's got a streaming show on his own website.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that. I'm going to have to go check it out. Is it probably on YouTube?
You know what? I didn't think to look for it on YouTube, but I did
Okay.
go to his website and it's all pay for play.
Okay.
You
Well,
gotta become a member. And who knows? It could be like the Dread Pirate Roberts, where he's not the original Dr. Demento. I don't know.
that's true. Yeah, yeah. Well, if we dig into intentional old funny songs that are still remembered today, we could probably start with something like Yankee Doodle. That song had a funny history because it began as a song mocking Americans by the English, but then it became embraced by the Americans. They owned it, and it even became the Connecticut state anthem.
And sung by elementary kids everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm sure they didn't understand the irony.
And what the fuck does put a feather in your cap and calling it macaroni mean? I looked this up, and apparently macaroni was a style of wig that was high fashion for men in the 1700s. Matt, your macaroni's looking awfully fine today. And sticking a feather in the cap was supposed to make an idiot Yankee look like they were trying to be a dandy.
Oh, I'm not touching that one at all. That's rife for some jokes. And to be honest, I'm actually quite confused by the whole thing still. But like language, let's jump ahead 150 years. What the fuck does macaroni have to do with a wig? Now you've got me, you got me pondering. I'm gonna have to get through this. Yes, we have no bananas. We'll move on with that. That was a smash hit in 1923 for Eddie Cantor. That was one of the first novelty songs to be spread by mass media, the phonograph, and the newly invented radio. And vaudeville acts like the Three Stooges, Groucho Marx, the Marx Brothers, and even Spike Jones, they all got in the act of mixing up music and comedy.
I was a summer camp alumni, and I was always a big fan of Hello Mata, Hello
Hello,
Fada.
Fada.
Here we are now, Camp Granada. I found out that this week, A Boy Named Sue by Johnny Cash, which I laughed at a lot when I was a kid, was written by Shel Silverstein.
I learned something as well, Jim. You ready to hear it?
Sure.
Tommy Smothers from the Smothers Brothers comedy duo. I used to love listening to them. He played acoustic guitar on the recording of John Lennon's Give Peace a Chance.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was a little blown away by that.
Yeah. And I, briefly remember Ray Stevens and the song The Streak. I can kind of see the naked cartoon guy running around, but I kind of feel like his humor and music, even though it caught on with a lot of people in the late 60s, early 70s, I kind of just missed him.
Yeah, and then there was It's Me, Margaret. I seem to remember him drunk in a phone booth or something, calling him, I assume, his wife.
Oh, that's right.
Hello,
Yeah.
it's me, Margaret. I think I only remember Ray Stevens because of the commercials I would see for a greatest hits album or something like that. I think that video clip was in the commercial for it. It felt like that was for a previous generation. He looked old to me at the time. And here's another one. He's still doing it, but he's finally retiring this year. It may not have lyrics, but Jim, the Benny Hill Show theme song. Come on. You can't help but get a smile on your face. Probably not as, coy as Benny Hill's.
Do you know for years, Dolly Parton on tour would pick up a saxophone and play that? She'd play that in the middle of her show. And of course, it makes everybody laugh. It makes everybody smile.
It
So,
does.
yeah, yeah. I think the Benny Hill theme song was called Yakety Sax.
Yes. Yes, it was.
Yeah, yeah, that's a cool
Yep.
name. And in the 1970s, when you and I were kind of growing up and discovering comedy and music, there was Monty Python, Always Looking on the Bright Side of Life, or the Lumberjack song.
Oh, I love that song.
Uh-huh.
Traffic lights.
Sit on my
Traffic
face and tell me that
Tell
you
me that you
love
love
me.
me.
The Riddles, Steve Martin, the Blues Brothers, and then we
Mm.
kind of hit our generation.
Have you ever heard of a wish sandwich, Jim? Bow, 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 bow. Yeah, you're right. Our generation, we had Spinal Tap. And what really works for me is that the characters are portrayed as they almost have this innocence about themselves, like Nigel playing that sweet sounding piano piece, but claiming its title. That's called Lick My Love Pump, but it's without that wink of the nod to saying something dirty. It's like, oh, everybody talks like this.
Yes, this is normal rock and roll music.
Yeah.
I always like the song title, Tonight I'm Going to Rock You Tonight. And I just say it. It makes me laugh. It made you laugh just when I say it. There's a genius to this nod and wink humor that they brought by being so serious about it. Spinal Tap has periodically released music over the past 40 years. Last year, there was a Derek Smalls Spinal Tap released song called Last year there was a Derek Smalls Spinal Tap release called Must Crush Barbie.
Must
I don't
crush Barbie, must
Yeah,
crush
yeah, you've heard
Barbie.
it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it was an attempt to just capitalize on the moment Barbie was having or if they just had an instinctive need to spoof it.
I think they had to spoof it because it got so big and Spinal Tap is Spinal Tap, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think in a way they're kind of making fun of all the people who were offended by the popularity of Barbie.
Probably. And they'd probably go out on stage and play it wearing all pink and not
I hope so.
understand. Yeah. So growing up, what do you think was your earliest memory then of
Um,
comedy in music?
boy, you know what? It was probably something by the Looney Tunes or the Muppets, or maybe singing along with Chuck Berry's My Ding-a-Ling.
Chuck Berry's My Dingling is absolutely hilarious.
I don't care how old you are. It's funny.
And I didn't even think about the Looney Tunes or the Muppets. Of course. I grew up a big fan of the Muppets, and I think maybe when I think of the Muppets, I think more of the Muppet movies. And a lot of those
Yeah.
songs are just kind of intentional songs within the film to move it along, not intended to be humorous. But then you look back at somebody like Animal or Zoo, definitely Dr. Teeth and
Dr.
that
Teeth. Yeah.
whole, yeah, Janice, all of them, and Looney Tunes. Is there anything funnier than the Barber of Seville?
Oh, yes. I love that one.
Do,
That
do,
was
do,
awesome.
do, 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 do.
The Looney Tunes did more to introduce me to classical music than anything else.
Oh, yeah. I remember my grandparents having a Dr. Demento record. You just spoke about him earlier. And they were into stuff like Lawrence Welk and the Boston Pops. So whenever I was at their place, trying to find something new to listen to, like it was going to appear, this was what always popped out and went on the record player. It stood out to me. But I think the first comedy record I personally owned was Disco Duck. And this was more of a one-off. DJ Rick Dees performed it, but it did hit number one. It was a number one
Yes.
song in the 1970s. And I was probably only 5 or 6 years old, but I must have seen it performed or something on some television special, and I had to have it. I may have gotten it for Christmas or just begged my parents for it at some point, but I definitely had Disco Duck.
Yes, I remember that. I remember one of my friends had that record and he would play it and he would always follow it up with Convoy. I know that's not meant to be a comedy song, but hey, Rubber Duck, you're funny.
Yeah, but you can't help but laugh at Convoy a little bit now when you
Yes.
hear it.
Yes, because it sounds like a kid's song.
They do a segment over here on a radio station called Cheese or Cracker, and it's either a cheesy song or a cracker,
Yeah,
a
good
real
song.
hot song, good song. And a few weeks back, I was working and I had the radio on, and I forget what it was up against, but Convoy was the cheese song that afternoon. And it won. It won. Everybody wanted to hear Convoy. I sat here. I was like, I can't believe I'm hearing
Yeah.
Convoy.
We got a big old convoy.
Convoy. So this will probably, and deservedly so, take up more of a bulk of the show because we could never address comedy and music and not talk about Weird Al Yankovic. How epic was he for us in those early formative teenage years?
We have been talking about doing this kind of comedy show for a while because of him. He was the inspiration for it. It's like, yeah, but we can't just come on here and talk about Weird Al, even though we could,
We
because
could.
there's so much out there to talk about with him. And Weird Al hit with me before I got too cynical. He got me at that right age. Parodies and spoofs, they can be easy to disregard, but they give you license to go places you might not be able to in a straightforward joke because you're kind of playing a character. You're not representing yourself. Not that he would ever work anything blue, but some people do. There's a skill to music and a skill to comedy, and he does both really well. He has the skill to be a quote unquote serious musician.
He's a fantastic musician, so talented.
Yeah.
There's a film that came out about his life about a year ago, and Daniel Radcliffe plays him very well in the film. I'm going to warn anybody that watches it. It starts out great, and for about an hour, it's typical Weird Al, and you're laughing your ass off, and then it just really digresses. And it's like, but almost like in a Weird Al way, the movie gets worse and worse, and he dies in the end. He does his own life story.
Wait,
Uh,
what? I
yeah.
haven't seen the shit.
Oh, the movie is great. It's full of music. When he starts writing the songs, he's hanging out with all of his friends, and he grows up with his parents trying to throw away his accordion all the time, and he has to fight to get it to play it.
You got to fight for your right to party, Jim.
Yeah. Well, one day he's asking for a bologna sandwich, and he comes up with My Bologna.
Oh.
And his friends sitting around are like, that's the greatest piece of music we've ever heard.
All he
And,
wanted was a Pepsi, Mom.
yeah. And so in telling his own life story, he winds up married to Madonna in the 80s. It's funny, but like I said, the last half hour of that movie was one of those situations where I was almost angry with myself for finishing it. So well done though. Daniel Radcliffe is absolutely brilliant playing him and actually plays and sings all the parts. So impressive. Some of my favorites of his were his parody of the Police song King of Pain.
Oh yeah. That's
King of
my
Suede. I love
size
that.
up
That's my
there.
size up there. And definitely Yoda. As a huge Star Wars kid, this song made me laugh my ass off every damn time I heard it.
The best thing is it's so relatable. Lyrically, you can do this yourself. I do this at work all the time. He's retired now, but a guy who used to work with Ed, we would sing silly shit all the time while we were working. Just it passes the time. You know, a tool plays a song at the end of its run. Hey, we're gonna make up words about something we don't like.
And it's fun to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, most of it wasn't PG either, so that's why it was so much fun to
No.
us.
It almost makes you think maybe it's a little bit like the army songs that, people would sing,
Oh yeah, in the cadence, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Back with Weird Al, the movie UHF, that's what it led to for him. I think it was 1989 when that came out.
Supplies.
This is my mop. And its soundtrack was amazing. It did have a few spoof songs. The Money for Nothing Beverly Hillbillies spoof was funny. There was Let Me Be Your Hog. I don't know if you remember that. It's just really short. But my favorite Weird Al song, and one of my favorite songs of all time, probably if you said, Jim, you're going to take 25 songs with you to your grave, I might have to take this one with me. It's a hidden little gem on the album, The Biggest Ball of Twine in Minnesota.
It's a good story. I can see why. I love romanticizing this big ball of string. Sorry, the biggest ball of twine in the world. But then when they get there, you know, he questions, what is this all about? What was he thinking? What was he trying to prove? And I expected, you know, the first time I'm here, I'm expecting the family to lead a revolt and unravel it, burn it, roll it down the hill, expose it to water, whatever, or at least for them to turn on the father for making them sit in the car for so long just to see this big ball of twine. But no, they kept reveling in all its glory.
Yeah, well, there was the joke in it of, I promised the kids we'd hook it to the car and take it home, but I was only joking. Uh, it's got some great lines in it. That it kind of really tells the story of the quintessential 1980s American holiday of going somewhere in the station wagon together with your mom and
Oh yeah,
dad.
the thing that got me were the comic books in the back
Yeah,
seat,
yeah,
singing the 99 bottles of beer on the wall,
yeah.
all of
and
that stuff.
and don't forget the jar of pickled wieners.
Oh, or your souvenir miniature ball of twine.
But that would kind of just be a regular ball of twine then.
And that's what makes it so funny. And I liked his polkas too. Polkas on 45 was cool because it gave quick hits of popular songs, but it had the benefit of spoofing the Stars On songs that always seem to make their way to KTEL albums when I was a kid. We've talked
Hmm.
about Stars On plenty of times. I found a pre-album live version and he plays 1999 by Prince instead of Burning Down the House. I don't know if you remember the song, but there's a bridge where all the yodeling takes place. And in the live version, he sings, we're gonna yodel like it's 1999. And
Nice.
then they go into the beer barrel polka and all that stuff. But famously, Prince told Weird Al no when asked to cover his songs. And I'm sure that's why it was changed for the studio version.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And Weird Al, he's got to be a cultural icon by now. Dude's
Yeah.
beloved.
I'm glad you brought up the polkas because those were a lot of fun. Definitely, without a doubt, he is a cultural icon. I think he's kind of been hit or miss since his heydays in the 1980s. But I remember, it doesn't seem like it was so long ago, but within the past 20 years, he had White and Nerdy that
Mm,
came out. That was hilarious. Gonna be white and
like
nerdy.
nerdy.
Yeah, that was fun. And he brought decades of laughter, and he's still touring and recording. Weird Al is that safe artist with humor that you can pass down to your kids and have a good time laughing together.
And I think that's maybe why it feels like he's taken a step back because he is safe. And that's not a bad word because I think it's harder to work within a framework of not being profane, but still being funny. It may be corny at times, but there's nothing wrong with that. Not everything has to have that edge to be entertaining or good.
No, no. But then going beyond our teen years, or sometimes we're still there, let's admit it, having that edge and being profane, like Two Live Crew, when we were
Mm,
listening to them back in the 1980s and 90s, they certainly made us giggle just because the songs were filthy.
yeah, there's no delicate way to talk about them. We don't condone the content, right? But we would be lying if we didn't admit to laughing at it
Mm-hmm.
quite heartily. It was a different time. All I ever heard though was the music and all of the outrage. People were pissed, right? But did they ever try to be taken seriously? Or were they being serious at the time? It doesn't seem like they were.
I think Two Live Crew were about shock value and pushing the limits. They wanted to be famous and came along at the time when pushing those highly pornographic lyrics would take them to the new heights based on the controversy of it alone. I remember being on a beach in South Carolina when I was about 16 years old, middle of the afternoon, and there were a group of people all just standing around a boom box. And I went and joined them. They were listening to Two Live Crew. And it wasn't because the music was good. They weren't all attracted to it because, ooh, what's this new rap music? What's going on? It was because we had never heard dirty lyrics like that before. And it was hilarious. You could, one and one, we're having some fun in her bedroom all day and all of
Yeah.
the night. And then we're going to stop there.
Yeah, because we can't really say much of it. And I think there's some parallels there with rap in general, because sometimes I feel like people are just tuning in to hear what the flow is and
Mhm.
not necessarily how it's said, but what is said.
But I remember because of Two Live Crew, there was a period in my life where the dirty lyric was what attracted me to the song.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, like early Easy E. There was a
Oh
lot in
yeah.
his music that was also kind of, and now I don't think he was trying to be as pornographic as
No,
what.
but to us it was unintentionally funny.
Yeah, yeah.
But they Two Live Crew, they weren't doing anything that John Valby hadn't done before them. Valby still feels like a dirty little secret, like, you dude, stay over there, far, far away from the rest of us. We don't want what you have. Maybe because Two Live is rap and that genre was gaining momentum in late 80s and it seemed a bit threatening. Valby was just a creepy guy in his piano singing dirty songs a 14-year-old would come up with.
I was not really ever exposed to Valby, and I saw you put his name in the notes, and I went and looked him up, and I think you're right. The word creepy, he was like your dirty uncle,
Yeah,
like you didn't really
yeah.
want to be alone with that guy at a family reunion.
No, you didn't at
And
all.
yeah, it didn't strike me the same way the Two Live Crew did. I think you're correct. The excitement of rap on the rise combined with as nasty as they want to be made it more attractive to our stunted immaturity.
And I did see John Valby live once, and I felt like I needed a hot shower afterwards. In the 2000s, Steel Panther was the hair metal equivalent to Two Live Crew. If you substituted serious lyrics, these would be some really damn good hair metal songs. They can wail. And yes, even though R-rated at best, they made me laugh. I couldn't help it. Some of the shit that came out of their mouth, it was unexpected.
I bet you they do a great cover of that Mozart Lick My Ass song. It sounds like it's right out of their playlist.
Why don't they cover that? That seems like they can make up lyrics for it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, they already did the title. I mean, lick my ass. I mean, that's right up their alley.
What about a band or a duo like Tenacious D? In the past 20, 25 years, Jack Black was already established as an eccentric character in Hollywood, but suddenly, and I do think School of Rock helped elevate this for him a bit.
Oh, by far,
Yeah,
yes.
he came bursting out with Kyle Gass as a rock duo, and they're tongue in cheek, but it's still kind of comedy.
I've never really been sure what to think of Tenacious D. There are certain songs I like, but most of them fall flat with me. And I think the problem is Jack Black has a visual quality. I don't have a problem picturing him being outlandish in my head, but when maybe the songs aren't funny, he is. And then it's like, okay, so what am I supposed to laugh at here if I'm just listening to the song? Am I always supposed to have a picture of you in my head? He's got a great voice. It's as rubbery as Jim Carrey's face.
And yeah, I can see what you're saying. I get the reason why people like them. But for me, everything is about being over the top musically as well. So through their style and physical performance, there hasn't been humor in the lyrics for me to make me laugh at it as much when I'm listening to it casually. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of my friends who like, oh, let's put on some Tenacious D, they've watched all the videos, the film, they've maybe seen the live concerts either in person or on DVD, and they're able to go back to that place in their mind where they're imagining that type of physical performance that they're getting from that show. Whereas I'm probably more musically involved. Whatever that song is, the greatest song of all time, or the greatest song that was ever written. I think that's what it's called,
Yeah.
and it goes through several different styles of classic rock riffs, even breaking into kind of Stairway to
Mhm.
Heaven at one point very prominently. So my inner musician can kind of laugh at that. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where if you didn't get to experience it firsthand, you wouldn't necessarily understand the comedy behind it.
Yeah. And this is a case of, and there's others that do this too. Whereas, okay, the joke fell flat, so I'm just going to overact,
Hmm.
and be gregarious. And I don't want to, I guess I will say jackassery. You kind of do that, dun dun, jazz hands.
Yeah, but it's great music though, and I won't knock
Oh,
anything
yeah.
away from Kyle Glass's guitar playing either because he is phenomenal. We mentioned the Blues Brothers earlier. Of course, we grew up with them, and Eddie Murphy impersonating James Brown, getting into his hot tub on Saturday Night Live. Gonna make you wet, gonna make you sweat.
Hot tub.
Coming up, James Brown with Dr. Joyce Brothers. But I think music has had some big moments on SNL. And two of the most well-known songs in more recent years has to be, well, the first, Adam Sandler's Lunch Ladyland, and then
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and then Andy Samberg and Justin Timberlake's Dick in a Box.
That's got to be that was the most unexpected song I think I've ever heard on Saturday Night Live.
Well, when you go to the Adam Sandler song and he hits that sloppy Joe part of the
Sloppy
song,
Joe.
it takes everybody who's ever experienced that in high school cafeteria right back to there.
Mm.
But the first time I heard Dick in a Box, I probably cried. I laughed so hard because you're right. You weren't expecting it. It was
Yeah.
just out of nowhere because Justin Timberlake and Andy Samberg always had that kind of, oh, we can be cooler. They always picked on that, the cool guy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then,
Step
yeah,
one.
you put your dick in a box. Step two.
Got a hole in the box.
Andy Samberg has done some really fun music with Lonely Island, but this might be the funniest musical piece that ever came from Saturday Night Live. However, I would say Mother Lover is a close second if you remember that the video to Mother Lover.
Yeah. And now Jim knew what he was doing because he didn't mention Eddie Murphy until now. Because if you did it too soon, this probably would have just ended up being an Eddie tribute show and we wouldn't stick to just his songs. Don't bring a Bigfoot in my home, Gus. Goonie Goo Goo.
I remember listening to Boogie in the Butt by Eddie Murphy
Oh,
in your
Jesus.
bedroom when we were teenagers growing up. And yeah,
Yeah, that's my challenge. Do not recite this album.
no, do not. Put a boogie in the butt, put a
but
boogie in the butt. I ain't putting no boogie in nobody's butt.
but
That was nasty,
that's
man.
nasty, man. What are you talking about? But he had a hit in the 80s. It wasn't intentionally funny. Party all the time. It was a hit too. It reached number 2.
Yeah, it did reach number 2. And what's funny is when it came out, I think when we were watching the video for the first time as kids, we kept wondering, is this real? Is this
Yeah, when's the funny start?
yeah, what's Rick James doing there? Is this going to be a joke? Well, even more recent, one of my favorite shows in the past 10 to 15 years has to be The Flight of the Conchords. This was recommended to me back in the day, and I had no idea what I was getting into when I put it on to watch it. And in that very first episode, the most beautiful girl in the room.
In the whole wide room.
Yeah. I love that
You
humor.
gotta have that part.
I love the most beautiful girl in the room.
And sometimes when they do that, they break into the song. And no, these aren't musicals, so don't go there. It's like we're seeing into their daydreams
That's
and how
it.
they
That's
play
what I'm
out.
thinking. Yeah.
Or the song is a really good way just to move the story, and it's like a segue
Mhm.
because they can make the skips and the jumps just with the good storytelling. And they usually think it's something profound, but shit usually falls apart because they're really, really awkward. My favorite though is If You're Into It, when Brett writes a song for a girl and it's, well, he thinks it's sweet, but it's pretty inappropriate. They are just delightfully clueless.
I really enjoyed researching some of their stuff before they did this show. I forget exactly what the name of it is, but the French song they do where they're the
Oh,
like
fa
"Foo fa
fa
la
fa.
la, yeah, fa fa fa," but everything "Bonjour, bonjour, baguette."
Yeah, they're in a bakery or
But they're
something.
just
Yeah.
using any like a common French word, and it's
Yeah,
the whole song.
exactly.
And all
Uh,
right, so before we wrap up all the comedy, because we could like go down roads and dark alleyways that we don't
yeah, we're
need to
starting to
on the
get wound
show,
up.
Matt, we can do a little name checking here at the end of some of the great music and musicians that we kind of grew up with.
Sam Kinison. How did we go this far without talking about him? He was a perfect comedian for the outrageous 80s. He lived fast and hard. The big song everyone knows, his rendition of Wild Thing, his screaming was right at home in that hair metal style back then. He did some straight ahead normal covers on the next album, Leader of the Band. He did Cheap Trick song, Gonna Raise Hell, AC/DC, Highway to Hell, and a really good cover of Under My Thumb by the Stones.
Nice. And then we had Cheek and Chong.
Oh, ever since I was a little baby, I was dribbling.
Basketball
Basketball
Jones.
Jones.
Basketball Jones. That
Oh,
basketball was like a basketball to me.
gonna go downtown. Gonna see my gal.
Whoa, whoa,
That's
whoa,
it,
whoa.
blind baby.
That's
Gonna sing
enough
her a
blind melon
song.
chitlin
Gonna
for
show
today.
her. Yeah, yeah. Oh shit, yeah. I was gonna get carried away there. Hey, you said a name check. I'm just taking it to its natural conclusion where I get to sing something inappropriate and not take the blame because, well, comedy, Jim.
I think they also had a small hit with Born in East LA.
Oh, yes, they did in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Springsteen parody.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I won't forget many evenings listening to possibly the now not so PC Dennis Leary song "Asshole."
Oh, it's pretty amazing you chose now to bring this song up. Did I step out of line previously?
I wasn't talking to you,
I promise it came from the cockles of my heart.
or perhaps the subcockle area.
Maybe even the colon, Jim.
Oh boy, that's a pretty deep place. Yeah, Dennis Leary, that song, I question some of the lyrics in it now, but I
Mm.
think sometimes you need to know that a joke is a joke, and that's what's going on in that song.
And you have to take into account when it was a joke.
But it was also about being an asshole, and that's the joke because you can laugh at assholes for being assholes.
Yeah, because getting pissed at assholes doesn't do anything.
No, it doesn't.
No, just makes them a bigger asshole.
Trust me, I know this firsthand, people. All right, and then after that, yeah, somebody who was a little more lighthearted than everything we've been talking about, Steve Martin. His classic rendition of that song "King Tut."
Yeah, so we're kind of back into Tenacious D territory. Right? Because even when a joke is not that strong, he sells it with that face, right?
Yep, yep.
But he has a zaniness to him that's endearing. I'm very visual. Obviously, I've mentioned YouTube clips all the time, and I'm sending Jim stuff because I want to know what I'm looking at. I don't want too much mystery. I want to know what's this person look like that's singing to me. But Steve Martin's huge smile when he did this song live will forever. It's in my head. Whenever I hear King Tut.
King Tut.
Doo 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 doo. Comedy and music is a tightrope. I've listened to interviews of other comics not liking those who would do it. Like they thought it was a cheap way to win over the crowd. Oh crap. I gotta follow the guy that just ripped on the guitar.
Yeah.
Way to set me up, pal. That kind of thing. People don't, well, maybe I don't think they think much of Bo Burnham just on this kind of the comments I've read on him. Because he started out on YouTube,
Hmm.
right? Doing songs. But you know what? Nobody has the same journey in comedy or anything else. Not everybody's going to take the Sam Kinison route. I don't think people should be taking that route. But during the pandemic, he released a comedy special called Inside on Netflix, and it was all inside his house, no crowd, obviously, COVID, but it was just him and his instruments, and there were some pretty good songs. It's worth checking out.
It was good. I enjoyed it. I don't remember who recommended it to me, but it definitely was great humor. Yeah, Bo Burnham's one of those guys. We're going to run into these people more and more over the years as we get older and as technology has changed. And I'm sure there was a generation before us who didn't accept the fact that we were getting our songs from music videos instead of from the radio or something
Hmm.
along those lines.
Yeah.
And I think for our generation, these musicians, comics, people coming along from YouTube, or next it'll be, TikTok artists are starting to, you
Oh, yeah. They're
know,
permeating now.
yeah. So it's something we're just going to have to get used to. But yeah, before we digress, Matt, I think that we could probably wrap up the comedy show. And
Yeah. We've probably taken up enough of people's time and we'll move on.
yeah, and there's probably stuff that we've missed, and there's probably more we
Plenty of
could
stuff.
have dived into and made the show a lot longer by talking about Spinal Tap for an extra 15 minutes.
Yeah, but
Or
what are we going to say about Spinal Tap that other people haven't said? I mean, it's
oh,
fun to have the conversation, right?
yeah,
Because we
it
can share a
is.
few laughs.
It
But
is.
hey, if we missed something that we didn't mention, or maybe you think we don't know, hit us up on Facebook. Tell us what we missed. I
Yeah.
was going to bring up Max Sabbath, but that's a show for one. That's
Yeah,
disturbing.
that is disturbing. Tiny Tim.
Oh, Tiny Tim with the ukulele.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of funny. Dimitri Martin too. He did some songs.
Yeah. It's amazing though how popular that some of these artists got as one-hit wonders with this music. And
Oh yeah.
more power to them for being able to do that.
Any way you can make your bank, make it.
Make it. All right, Matt.
Yeah, we're done with comedy now, Jim, and I think we're at the part of the show where we tell everybody where we're going next, and most likely people are familiar with the pattern. We do a subject, we cover a month, and we're at that time where we get to cover March of 2024, and we're really looking forward to it. We found some really good stuff.
Yeah. If you want to know what we think of Beyonce's new album, listen to the next show because we are going to definitely have to talk about it. Even though we
Yeah,
leave the popular music out most of the time, this is a necessity.
yeah, listen to it. Do your homework.
And because I ranted about her right to make country music in the last episode when we were wrapping up February, I feel like this has to be,
Does Jim regret?
yeah, Jim's Beyonce rant part 2 might surprise you once again.
It might. Hey, does Jim regret, or is Jim going to back up his previous rant?
Ooh.
We're going to find out next time when we cover March. It's going to be a blast.
All right, everybody, we look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, peace, love, and podcast.